We'd like to thank the following sponsors for helping provide this video.
This week, extremely successful Agile Games conference. I'll talk a little bit more about that after Woody's presentation. What I particularly like about what we're about to hear is that it's inspired by not only one of the Agile principles, the 12 principles behind the Agile Manifesto, but one of the principle that I think is probably the most important. Build projects around motivated individuals, give them the environment and support they need, and trust them to get the job done. And it's that principle that helped Woody create the technique he's going to be talking about. He's been programming computers for over 30 years, and he's currently an Agile coach and application development manager at a hardware company that manufactures high-quality, innovative irrigation products. So he's been Agile coach for over 15 years, been a manager, trainer, extreme programmer. Believes that code must be simple, clean, and maintainable so that we can realize the Agile promise of responding to change, and that we must constantly inspect and adapt. So welcome, Woody Zuill.
You've already nicely introduced me, thank you. I feel right now that I got invited to come here to New England for the Agile Games Conference, and I've met so many people, and some of them are here tonight, and it's just been wonderful. It's like a very warm welcome for me, and I really, really appreciate that. And I'm glad I have this chance to share these things with you tonight. So I honor you guys for being here, and gals. I don't know how to say it anymore. When we talk about a group, what's the appropriate way to include everybody? Do we say folks?
Terrestrial beings.
Terrestrial beings. So we have some giraffes and some octopus, I don't know, octopi. Anyways, you come out after work, it's your evening time, you're using up parts of your life to improve your abilities, and we're the ones who can make change in our industry. A lot of people just don't make that effort, and I honor you for that, and I'm going to try and share something that hopefully you'll find useful. This is a talk that I proposed at Agile 2014 and got accepted. So you are the first group that's actually seeing it in its current form. So it's the first public showing. Let's see how it goes. So what I'm talking about here is called mob programming, which is a way of working that I'm going to show you. But before I do that, we're going to talk a little bit about leadership and what leadership might look like in an Agile environment as opposed to a old-fashioned hierarchical way of thinking. Did I say that word right? Hierarchical? Yeah. That is a tough word to say.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. I will certainly mispronounce words as we go. Just let me know. We probably have a lot of very smart people here who can help me become a better speaker. Okay, so let me see, I've got to turn this on so this works properly. So I've got a story to tell, and I've got to make a point here. I used to do this slide and say, somewhere in here, I'm going to really cover the thing I think is most important. But when I got done to the end, I would often do a retrospective. It was never the thing I thought that was most important, that the people that are listening to me. There's something about speaking that you never get across your point, right? So that's a troubling thing, but that's just real life. There's famous people made quotes about that. So I just kind of believe that. Whatever I say, you're going to learn something different anyways. So let's see if you can guess what it is, but I'm going to tell you very plainly at some point what I think is really most important. Okay. And I'm going to have to go kind of quickly. We have just a certain amount of time, so some of the things I'm going to not cover as well, perhaps, but I'm going to try and cover the important things real completely. So has anybody read this book from John Kay? Do you know John Kay? Anybody here? Dang good book. I'd read it, you know, if you haven't read it yet, read it. Get it on your Kindle tonight, and then get the Audible thing so you listen to it while you go to bed. It's a really good book. Obliquity, Why Our Goals Are Best Achieved Indirectly. He's got some YouTube things and maybe a TED Talk. Just spend a little time learning about this. This is the basic idea He presents this much better than I can, and if he ever gets a chance to see this, I stole this from him, I apologize. But it's a quick way to get the idea. So, you've all seen one of these maps sometime. If we're going to get from here to over here, what direction are we going in?
West.
We're going west. Okay, in the old days, to get from here to over here, old days meaning before they built a certain canal, how did you do it?
South
In a
and
boat.
north.
You went way around, right? That's an oblique path to this. But nowadays we get to go through the Panama Canal. So what direction is the Panama Canal? So this is what it is. We think we want to go this way, but you actually have to go that way. Right? So what that means is you actually have to, if you can tell there, go south for a little bit, and then actually go almost directly east for a little bit. So it's an oblique path to get from east to west. We don't just go west. So this is just something to get us thinking about what does this mean. But here's something that was a lot more important to me. I learned this 35 years ago or so from a sign painter that I was trying to learn some techniques from. Brilliant, brilliant man. Really great sign painter. In the sign business, if you drive around a town and you see great signs, you can find the person who made them, because they always would script in very tiny lettering their name and phone number, so somebody could get in touch with them. So I got that and I called him. And he said, yeah, come on by. They're usually very friendly people. And the first day, I kind of told him, I want to learn what you're doing. He said, that's good. And this is what you need to be able to do. The object isn't to make art. It's to be in that wonderful state which makes art inevitable. If I didn't tell you anything else tonight, this is really. I should just give that to you and let you sit there for 10 minutes. Because this is what Agile is. This is what Agile is, in my opinion. But let's go on. Oh, I should say before I go any further, my wife Andrea is responsible for all the good art that's in this talk. The bad stuff, it will be something I did. But all this is stuff We're sitting in the back right there. I wasn't really asking for applause for her because she always gets all the attention. So, she's a great artist, and what she does is she makes pieces for jobs that she's doing. People hire her to do art, and then when I see her do something that I think will fit my slides, I ask for permission to use that, and she lets me do it in a presentation. So thank you again, Andrea. It's my wife, Andrea Zuill. Okay, let's go on. So we talked about this already. This is from the Agile Manifesto. It's one of the principles. We build projects around motivated individuals, because we cannot motivate people, right? They come motivated. We give them the environment and support they need. That's really an important thing. And we trust them to get the job done. If we have trouble trusting the people we hired, we are either having trouble hiring people or trusting people, right? We gotta do this. We have to trust the people that we hire. It's really important that we give them the environment they need and the support they need. That's what our job. Well, I should have asked, how many developers are here? Software developers, write code for your job. How many, what else do we have? QA people, just purely QA. Because that's normal, 12 developers, 1 QA. How many manager types, scrum managers, product manager types? And we have maybe some designers, a couple designers. So what did I leave out? Is there anything else?
Technical writer.
Technical writer? Did we meet?
No.
What's your name?
Bill Wood.
We met. We met at Microsoft Nerd Center the other day.
We did.
That is fantastic.
I was looking at jet lag, so.
That's okay. I forget things very quickly, but I didn't forget you. Because a weird thing happened, I'll tell. We were standing there talking, and somebody walked past me and says, I recognize that voice. And he turned to me and goes, are you Woody Zuill? And I said, yes, I am. How in the world do you recognize me from my voice? He says, I've watched your videos and listened to your interviews. And so today I got to go speak at Microsoft. So wow, thank you for stopping me, and it was great. It's weird, nothing happens by accident. You know, I plan nothing happens by accident. So let's go on. I'm sorry, I'm distracting from this wonderful stuff I want to give here tonight or share with you. The point, though, is that it looked to me like maybe half of us here are involved somehow in the management side of things. So that's why I asked how. And what we really end up with is we have to understand how to provide that environment. That's how we got to the mob programming. I'm going to share a good chunk of what mob programming is. But first, we want to talk a little bit about leadership. So we'll do a little bit more on this. This is another principle from the Agile Manifesto. Hopefully you've got these things memorized. It's taken me years to memorize them and have short versions of all of them because I want to be able to use them in my daily work. So the best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge. They emerge. We can't figure them out ahead of time. It's in the doing of the work that we discover the work that we must do. So until we start doing the work, we don't know anything. That's my opinion. I don't mean this to sound like a lecture. Take everything I say with a grain of salt, right? It's just me giving you some of my ideas. Here's the thing, from self-organizing teams. So maybe I can ask the question, what is a self-organizing team? Anybody have how do you define self-organizing? What does that mean? Anybody got an idea?
You give them the tools and the list of what has to get, you give them the tools and the list of what has to get done, well defined, and then they just pick who's going to do what.
They decide themselves who's going to do what. Yes? Oh, we'll get the mic. He's running. Not with scissors. He's running with a mic.
I would say give them the vision, give them the idea, the purpose, the why, the really big picture, and let them, really decide what it is they want to do as well as how they're going to do it to achieve that vision. And then they're really self-organizing.
So they're going to figure out, now there's another layer on there, and that is they might organize themselves, gather themselves together, decide who should be working on this. But most of the time we see it as, let's make sure they understand the vision and let them get it done. That has to combine back with this other one, because we have to give them the environment and support to be able to do that. Because normally, if you just give people stuff to do, and they don't have the knowledge and the practice and the abilities to do this, they might just say, well, let's just, and then they'll self-organize by picking a manager to manage them. So that's what we're kind of trying to avoid. So let's go on. So I like those two things right out of the Agile Manifesto, and we'll talk about some more of that as we go, because it's really, the Agile Manifesto has all the guidance I've found I need to make good decisions about the practices I'm going to follow. I find it's a really good thing. Am I looking kind of morose? Should I be happier looking? I'm kind of... I have no sense of my own appearance. So this is mob programming. This is really the way I like to think of it. It's all the brilliant people working on the same thing at the same time and in the same space. And there's one more thing to add, because this to me is what Agile is. Co-located team. We're not doing some requirements 2 months ahead and then doing some design the next month and then doing some coding and then doing some deployments. It's all at the same time. We compress it into real time, everybody working together. The question? Now, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to try to answer all the questions in the presentation, but if we get questions that I know I'm not going to cover, I'll go ahead and answer them.
What hits me is all the brilliant minds, ... That, but most organizations, they have a spectrum of minds, most of them kind of run-of-the-mill. Hopefully one can do mob programming with all the run-of-the-mill minds working at the same thing, the same time, in the same space, and nonetheless getting something good done.
So I like to think of the people on the team, whatever they've shown that they can do, they're all brilliant to me. I take the grandmother role, right? It's like, I can't believe how you did that. That is what, I wish I could have done that when I was your age. That's the kind of the role I take. So I think everybody's brilliant that I've worked with. We've put together a team of brilliant people, whatever we have. So we'll talk about that later. I have some ideas about that. And if we don't get into the talk, we can talk about it. I think of everybody on the team, whoever they are brilliant. I just want them all working together at the same time, in the same place, on the same thing. That's Agile. This is what mob programming adds to, on the same computer. This is the difference. So you can think of this as pair programming on steroids. Somebody used that, so I thought that was pretty good. Or extreme pair programming. So if extreme programming has pair programming, this is extreme programming. Something like that. I honor everyone who's come before us. We just found this term. It works for us. Mob programming. So let's go on. This is what it looks like from the front. That's actually, these are people who are actually working, by the way. We put a camera in the corner that could take a shot every 15 seconds. We just let it running while we were running some tests. So nobody really posed for this. These people aren't smiling for the camera. They're smiling because we have a bunch of green tests, approval tests coming up, test after test. We had a huge project. This was the day before deployment, and all tests were running green, and everybody was kind of excited. I don't know if you can make it out there, but it's almost a look of deep pleasure. That's kind of what's going on there. This is something we experience frequently, happiness on the job, the way that we work. Let's go on. This is what it looks like from the back. Okay? So basically, you can see we've got our monitors are just projected up on the wall. So we have essentially 2 monitors. We have one computer through which the code goes. We have other computers sitting around. I have a video that I want to show. This will take a second to bring up. So this takes about 3 minutes. This shows how we work. Basically, what we do is we spend the first hour every day studying together as a group. We usually have picked something the day before that we need to study, and we'll all kind of read up on it and try to explain it to each other the next morning. We usually go to some code. We never do a stand-up. You can imagine we don't really need one because we're always in alignment. Okay, there's a lot of important things going on here. I'm not going to try and explain them all. We got the dual projectors. We got the single computer through which the code goes into our code base. We have a role. It's called the driver, but it mixes up every 15 minutes. We switch out who the driver is every 15 minutes. Everyone else is a navigator. So the navigators are deciding where we're going. Our product owners come and sit with us. Our product owners, yeah, that's a cute little thing there. We got a manager coach, and managers don't do much work, really. Our product owners come and work with us, and we try to show them exactly what we've been working on today, and they help us decide the next thing to work on. Whatever we're just now deploying, they're going to go work with it. It's in real use, and then we go on to the next thing. We go off and do solo work whenever we need to. We do not need to, there's no rule that everybody works together all the time. That's just our concept. You know, it's very dynamic. We decide what works best for us. We're a self-organizing team. So somewhere, well, you notice that through the day, people are moving around quite a bit. We take lunch, we take an hour. We start at 8 o'clock, we leave at 5 o'clock, we take an hour for lunch. The hour for lunch is usually spent taking a walk. We have beautiful hills nearby where we live all over the place. And so we can get up on those hills and walk for 40, 45 minutes and go pick up a sandwich on the way back. And then we get back and we're working again. So we got about another minute or 2 on this, and I'll go ahead and let it play out. A couple things I want to talk about as we're doing this. What we've noticed is that after lunch, we don't really get that lag or that feeling tired and worn out. We have this sort of level of happiness happening throughout the day. We're sharing our work with each other. We end up sometime when we get to about 3 or 4 o'clock, we do start thinking about, well, how are we going to tie up today? What are we going to finish up? But mostly through the day, we are just working on the work that we're working on. We don't really care where we're at because we know we're going to deploy 2, 3, 4 times a day. We just try to do that. You notice there's someone blurred out in there. I'll say she had asked that we don't use her images, so we honor everybody on the team, whatever their wishes are. Back to this, all expertise is in the same room. We're always working together. So we like to use that. This is the same phrase as we used earlier. I'll make a point about that. We do have some people who don't spend full time with the team. Usually our product owners are actually people who are working in different departments of the company, and they cannot focus fully on their project. They're working on other things too. But we bring them in at any time, and we make an agreement with them that at any moment we need them, we can call them. If they can't come right over, because we have a pretty big campus, if they can't come right over, we'll do a screen share, or we'll do a phone call, whatever it takes. I've been there now 3 years. I don't think we've left late, maybe more than once. Something we needed to get done that day, and we probably worked an extra hour. We get there on time and we leave on time. We have sustainable lives. That's really important. So this you'll just play over and over. If you want, we can just play this over and over. We'll go on? We'll go on, okay. I'm sort of the kind of the first time I did this talk with this video in there, we just let this play in the background the whole time because we didn't really have this whole slide set. But in reality, I now have a full slide set, so I seem more professional. Okay, so we went through this. So this is audience participation. Why would we work this way? There's the audience, you're supposed to be participating. Yes, please. Yes.
Because you get to leverage the knowledge of everyone on the team.
Absolutely.
To get everything done, so you're filling in the gaps.
Yes.
And you get good ideas, can spawn from lots of different people at the same time.
That's an excellent point. Ideas flow from person to person. That's how they become things we've created. That's really good. What else?
Is a good transfer of knowledge as well?
Good transfer of knowledge.
I'd say you're doing a real-time code review while you're doing the development?
It's always real-time code review. Yes?
I guess you said it better than I would over there, but there's a synergy that develops when you're working all at the same time and space, whereas instead of working off in silos and coming back later on, you get too far ahead of a problem, or other problems are created that could have been fixed along the way, rather than wait until a later stage to fix in the moment. So.
Yes, there is definitely that. What else?
You get the sense of a team, and there's no alienation. People are happy, and there's a esprit de corps.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct. Yes.
You said you stay focused and you don't end up getting sidetracked with other issues.
You don't go down rat holes or rabbit holes. Yeah, and you stay focused.
And
yes.
excitement also builds up as the problem solving and the ideas flow from one another.
I think there's a happiness factor if we keep getting successes. It's one thing I had a manager come in once and say, everybody's so depressed, this was several years back, how can we get them more engaged and stuff? Let's have some successes, I told them. Let's go, why do we go with 6 months of depressing failure? Let's have some successes along the way. Yeah, what else? Yes? We need to get everybody one of these, what a presentation that would be.
Yeah.
More question I've had, including pair programming, but certainly here, there's a point where you have discussions about, okay, do it this way, this way,
yes.
this way. But there's a point where, like at least me, actually coding, where there's a lot of careful syntax thinking, really have to focus, and can't really be in the discussion because computers are notorious on syntax and all that.
We'll talk about that.
And so, for me, I have to be away from the team to actually write the code, and then by the time I'm finished, I'm saying, okay, now what were you talking about the last half hour?
We'll talk about that. We'll show you how we do that. So, okay, so here's the thing. These were all good reasons that we've continued to do this. But why we would work this way? Why do we have this thing where we're all sitting together? That, by the way, is a post picture. But why? This is why. This is critical about our leadership. This is why. Because the team decided to. If they decided to put raincoats on and wear flip-flops and run around screaming, if that's what got the things going for them, I think I'd let them do it. They have to figure it out. Yes?
So what were the conditions that made them want to do this?
I forced them. No, I'm kidding. We'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to that.
Most
That's what
engineers
this
I know,
talk is about.
They just want to stay by themselves, right? I mean, people, most engineers, they want to not talk to people.
We'll get to that. We'll definitely get to that. There's going to be a lot of questions. I'm going to answer most of them. I guarantee you that. And if not, then I'll answer them at the end. Yes?
One of the things that nobody said was a good skill set of things. I think that's another reason, but I can't figure out why you need that many people if you're doing it that way. What are they all contributing?
The team decided to.
No, the team you put the team together. How did the team not know that it didn't need 25 people?
I'd let them decide. The team decided to.
How did you choose the team?
I was given the team.
You were given the team.
Yeah, I got hired to
So
replace it at a
how did the
team.
team know they didn't have too
We'll
many
talk
people?
about that.
Okay.
Okay? The team will decide. Okay? The team has to understand a lot of things, and part of our goal as people who understand Agile is to help spread that understanding around. A lot of this is, by the time we get to this end of this, you'll understand this is just a April Fool's joke. None of this is real. No, this is the way we work, and we've been working this way for 2.5 years. If we have enough time, you'll learn all about it. If not, we'll cover some of it later. There is a good video of this on Vimeo. This talk, a slightly different version from OrDev, and if I don't cover everything, that one covers everything. Let's go on. So how can we work this way? First of all, the Agile Manifesto tells us the first principle is individuals and interactions over processes and tools, right? So that's a very important thing. We have individuals. We don't have parts of individuals, right? The smallest entity we get is an individual. You know, you cut a part of the individual off, you now have a dead body part and the rest of the person. You can't split people up. Some people work 2 hours on this team, 2 hours on that team. That's a form of slow death. But anyways, we can't split people up. That's one important thing. Also, as soon as we have more than one person, we have to have interactions. That's how we work together. That's what we call teamwork. So we have to be pretty good at interactions, or at least we have to provide an environment where that's possible. So this is what we very early decided once we started working this way. This is really important. We treat each other with kindness, consideration, and respect. This seems so simple, but it's missing in a lot of workplaces. That should go in every direction. Guess who is the worst at this? I am terrible at this. I am disrespectful. I get snippy. I get argumentative. I get frustrated. I never show kindness. All of these things. But when you're working with a team of people who've all committed, what should we commit to? You know, the Scrum commitment's about, oh, we're going to do this work in 2 weeks. No, let's commit to being kind to each other, to having consideration for each other, to having respect, showing respect. And if I'm not good at that, guess what? The team helps me become good at that. I am a better person because of this team and the work we're doing together. It's what we need to do. We give these things up sometimes in the workplace, and we shouldn't. This is important, really important. Let's go on. But we have a practice we use. The practice is Driver Navigator. I don't think of mob programming as a practice, by the way. It's just kind of an idea. Let's work as a team. But the Driver Navigator is a practice I learned from somebody who is here tonight, Llewellyn Falco, sitting back there. Llewellyn is a brilliant, brilliant trainer and programmer on many topics, especially the technical things. Hire him for something. If you can get him, you will be lucky. He's fantastic. I learned from Llewellyn this Driver Navigator idea. I've been doing pair programming for a long time. I won't write code without a pair, by the way, even on my own projects. And I think I learned that from you, Llewellyn, because I started noticing how crummy my code is if I don't have a pair. Let's write good code, and I can do that with a pair. Same thing with TDD. Let's go on. We got the driver. We already talked about that. The driver uses a keyboard. Nobody else on the team, while we're programming, so to speak, is putting code into the computer. We call these the navigators. You can kind of think of it this way. If you watch an old-time movie, and there's one nation is bombing another nation in airplanes, they're flying along, you've got a pilot, and you've got a navigator. So the pilot doesn't care exactly where we're going. The navigator knows how to get there. The pilot knows how to keep the plane flying. He knows how to watch the things that keep it running right now. And he might say, hey, we're going to run out of gas soon, and whatever. But the navigators say, follow this coordinate and that coordinate. So somebody's giving instructions to the pilot that the pilot can't keep track of themselves because they're focused on flying the plane. I'm not a pilot. I did take pilot lessons years and years ago. That was too expensive of a hobby for me. I was a teenager at the time. Is anyone here a pilot? Probably must be.
Like you.
So the basic idea, that I might have it wrong, but that's what I always see in the movies. So I just take the story I saw. Is it something like that? Similar to that. Okay. Now planes might be different nowadays. I'm just talking about some old past global wars. Let's look at how this works. We've got a keyboard. That is just a dumb input device. It can't do anything on its own. We have a driver. The driver is a smart input device. They know how to translate thoughts into code. They might not be very sophisticated at it, or they may be pure experts at it. Then we have this thing we call the navigators. The navigators include the driver. The whole team can be navigators, and they usually are. We rotate every 15 minutes. We rotate the driver out of the driver's seat, and someone else takes over for us every 15 minutes. Where is the programming happening? Please.
Why 15 minutes? Why is it?
Oh, we can make it any time.
Did the team decide on 15?
The team decides. I'm done. Because that is exactly the lesson we need to learn. The team decides. The team figures out they like 15 minutes.
So we should mention 15 minutes is advanced.
That's maybe for a very sophisticated team.
You worked up to 15.
Yeah.
You didn't work down to 15.
When I first started using coding dojos to show these techniques before we knew anything about, you'll learn about that in a bit, about mob programming, I use a technique called a coding dojo to learn practices. In a coding dojo, we would use a rotation like this, and we'd use a 4-minute timer. But as we became better and better at this, we moved on to an 8-minute, and a 10-minute, and a 15-minute. But any team could use whatever number they want. If the team thinks 15 is too much, we can cut it down. Often when we add somebody new to the team, we bring it to a shorter time, so there's more rotation.
So the team worked up to 15 minutes rather than working down to 15.
Yeah, we started at 4 minutes. Okay. But that was a practice I was doing long before we came to mob programming. Okay, we'll go on here. This is what happens now. Somebody starts the day, becomes the driver. We start our timer, and then watch this. This is really cool. I'm not clicking anything. Every 15 minutes, we rotate through. This is an amazing animation done in PowerPoint. And I just, isn't that pretty cool? I'm not clicking. Not clicking. Okay, now I click. So when we're done with rotation, we just start over again. Same rotation. You know, Diana Larson, she talks about these things. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. So we just keep the same rotation throughout the day. So I've showed you kind of a philosophy of the kindness, consideration, and respect. I've showed you the practice that we use, and I'm going to show you a little bit about our timer. This timer that we have, one of the guys on the team, we were using an iPhone. Oh, I shouldn't say it. We were using one of these phone devices. And they have timers on them nowadays, right? And so we were using this for a timer, but we noticed we would ignore it. It would go off and everybody would just keep typing. So we got one of those, I thought, I'm going to get one of these really loud kitchen timers. So I got the loud kitchen timer and put it on. And every time it would go off, beep, we would ignore it. It was loud, but we still, so you're kind of too connected to the keyboard. So the person keeps talking, no, I'm almost done. I almost got this. You got to give it up. So, but one of the team members had gone across our work area. We have a big open work area. And the timer went off, and somebody goes, what is that beeping? It's driving me crazy. He thought, oh my goodness. He came running over and said, we got to stop that. We can't use that. It's irritating everyone in the building. So he sat down. As you saw, sometimes people go off on their own computer and quickly wrote a thing that would blank out the screen every 15 minutes. So it just blanks out the screen. You can't type. You can try. It's not very good. And that forced us to detach ourselves from the keyboard. We get attached to the keyboard. We get attached to thinking in code. And this is business stuff. Code isn't the best place to think about business stuff. Up here with other people, that's the business stuff. We didn't just, the computer doesn't know what a customer is, right? So if we're working with a customer thing we're writing, the computer doesn't know what that is. That's a human concept, nothing to do with computers. The computer understands very limited things. I don't even know why we have them, I'm so stupid.
They're very fast.
But they do certain things really well. So let's go on. This is the question everybody always asks me. How can we be productive with 5 people at one computer? And right now we have 6. How can we be productive? But here's the thing. I don't really know. This is what it was before. 5 individual people outputting something. This is what we noticed after we started doing this. And one of our guys there, Aaron, noticed when I took that picture, we have a box that we throw all our task cards into, story cards and whatnot. I just grabbed a bunch out so I could take a picture and go, that's a good chunk of work. Took the picture, and then he noticed every card on there but one was done in a 2-day period. That's 2 days worth of output. That thing at the top probably is equivalent to 3 or 4 days, maybe 5 days output the way we were working before. We noticed we were getting a lot done. How? I don't know. I really don't know. I've got theories. I don't know. I'm just here sharing with you something that we've done, right? I'm not a scientist. I'm not a researcher. I can hardly form sentences. This has just worked for us. And other people found it interesting, and that's why I'm out talking about it. Matter of fact, Llewellyn came by one day and to do some training for us, and he goes, "Are you guys sitting like this all day long?" And all of a sudden we started getting phone calls and emails from other people he was talking to. It's like, you wouldn't believe what those people are doing over there. And so then we started getting invited to little groups and stuff to talk about it. And here we are in New England talking about it. So, you know, it was a mob that was heard around the world, I guess. I don't know. So let's go on. So this is audience participation. Usually I'll use a whiteboard for this, but I think we can remember this as we go. What are the things that destroy productivity in writing, creating software? Somebody share some idea.
Email.
Emails. We don't need them. We don't need the mics. Just
interruptions.
Interruptions. Hey, you're here. Interruptions.
Changes in requirements.
Changes in requirements.
Misunderstood requirements.
Misunderstood requirements.
Getting stuck.
Getting stuck. Oh, this is great. Yes.
Egos.
Egos. Oh yeah. What's that? Budgets.
Funding.
Oh, funding. Oh yeah.
Silly errors.
Silly errors. Difficult error. We get stumped on all kinds of stuff.
Phone calls.
Phone calls. God, we're just barely getting started, but we got a bunch of them. We ended up with a list of about 25 things. We started with a list of benefits from this, the first talk that we gave on this. And then we noticed really that these benefits were all about problems that God solved that we didn't set out to solve. And so these things were the problems that we have. So this is a short list of them. I think you guys covered almost every one of these. And I'm only going to spend a few minutes on each one, because this is, we have a limited amount of time. I'll give little examples of each one of these and how mob programming for us solved these. So the communication problems. I'll give a little tiny example from my own life. Job 10, 12 years ago, hired on to a 3-month contract. So I asked this question of developers, maybe some of you managers will know, how long is a 3-month contract? How long?
3 months.
6 months. A 3-month contract is a 6 months contract, right? They think it'll get done in 3 months and it takes 6 months. Okay, I got introduced to in those days we didn't have product owners, but to what you might think of as the product owner, the expert on this thing. He said, you get to talk with him an hour and a half each week. Save up your questions, ask them to him. So I went ahead and asked him some questions. They gave me the documents, I had read them. I said, what is this, what is that? Went off to do my work. By the end of the day, I had questions. I went to my boss and I said, I've got some questions for my product owner guy. He's already gone off, he goes and sees customers, he'll be gone all week. You can't talk to him until next Monday. So back next Monday, I got to see him for an hour and a half. By the end of that day, I was blocked again. You can't save up questions in software development. It just isn't something you can do. I don't know who thinks you can, but whoever they are, I want to talk to them. Because I think that's a big problem in our work. Here's the thing. After the second week, I thought, I'm going to do a value stream map of this. So every time I was productive, I drew the top line, and when I wasn't, I drew the bottom line. Is that how you guys do value stream maps? Most of you? I do the productive part here, the not productive part there. And then I compressed it at the end of the 6 months. 2 weeks I could have got that job done. If I could have gotten my questions answered when they came up, because of the productive time that I recorded. That's just one of dozens of communication problems. We solve most of those in 2 ways. The team communicates freely all the time. All of our emails come into a group email account. All of our phone calls are taken from a group phone call number. We have a speakerphone. When anybody calls, we say, IS Dev Team. When you're on the speakerphone, we're all here. So whenever somebody talks to us, they're talking to the whole team. Whenever we receive an email, it comes to the whole team. We get very few frivolous emails. We get very few frivolous phone calls. Everything's serious about contacting our team. When we call out, we tell them we're on the speakerphone, we have a question. So we made an arrangement with our product owners, the people we're doing the work for. They come to us. because that's the way we're set up there. And they spend an hour or two every day with us, at least. And they're available within 2 minutes to answer any question. Imagine the difference between getting an answer in 2 minutes or getting an answer in 10 minutes. What does that do to your job? You can multiply that out. You guys are better at math than me. You can come up with a number there real quick. That slows you down quickly. So this is just a few of the communication problems. We could spend truly 2 days on communication problems alone. We've solved almost all the communication problems we have. Another thing is we get the work into production quickly. So we validate the value of things. That's a communication problem itself. We get instant feedback because things are going to production throughout the day. People are using the stuff. Working software is software that someone's using. It's doing work. Until it's used, it's useless. It has to be in use for us to call it working software, and we do that. Agile is about that, so we can get that instant feedback. We need the feedback. Otherwise, if you go 3 months without putting something into use, we're probably doing something wrong. Decision-making problems. This is really a big one. Communication is the top for me, but decision-making problems. We often are very reluctant to make decisions because we know they could backfire on us. So we involve other people and we have meetings. We get sign-offs from our boss and from the guy in this department, and the manager in that department, and this team. We have everybody look at it, tell us what's wrong, and finally we make the decision. And once we've made the decision, so we put all that stuff in because we're afraid, so we take a long time making the decisions. But once we've made the decision, I might have to explain this drawing, we get very protective of our decision. And the further along we go, the more irrational we become about how we'll stick with that earlier decision because we've been defending it all along. And we've got other people, so that's Homer, our dog, represents the other people we dragged in. And they're going to fight too because their signatures are on it. And we've got the gun, that's for protection. We got the locked door, and we're getting irrational over time. So the issue here is that we're reluctant to make the decisions, but once they're made, we stick with them. That's a problem. So with our team, this is sort of the way we think of it. First of all, imagine that's me, and I know there's something that needs to be done. I'm going to take action. But before I can, if I behave like this, I'm going to get fired or arrested or something. But when it's a whole group of people, you just can't stop it. They just make the decision, and they run with it. And we know for ourselves, the cost of each decision we make is very low, because we can make them like that, and we can reverse them like that. We can do 2 days worth of coding and decide we're going down the wrong path. Let's reverse. Go back to the day we checked out 2 days ago, get that code base, let's go down some other path. So we can make decisions quickly because we can undo them quickly, and because we're making them daily. What is it in the Agile Manifesto? The practice is business people and developers work together daily. And if we do that, we can make decisions with the people who are most interested in this thing, and we can get to a real decision quickly. They think that they want this. I've actually had it sometimes where a product owner will say, these are the things I want, and some of us are looking going, those are contradictory. We're not going to ever be able to get both. So we just ask them, which one do you want most? Let's do that one first. Let's do that. We get it done. It's delivered 2 days later. And then they say, now I want the other one. And then we have them look at it for a few minutes, and they go, you know what? We can't do that one. So let's go on to something else. So the decisions get made by doing the work. We do the work, make a decision. What's next? Based on what we just finished. It goes on and on that way. I will go through these pretty quick. Bare necessities. This means if you've got a project with 20 features in it, if you need to make a change to that product, what do you need to consider so you don't accidentally break something? You have to consider all 20 of those features. That means you have to go through and make sure this doesn't break anything else. If you have a project with just 5 features in it, that's a lot easier. If your project just has 2 features in it, that's a lot easier. Let's not put in superfluous stuff. That's one thing about bare necessities. So if we can take all those features and just find the few that are really important, let's deliver those. Let's start with just one. That's what we try to do. We want to deliver something the first day. If we can't do it the first day, at least the second day. We want to deliver quickly. Deliver features until bored. So when the product people say, that's good enough, I got something more important over here in this other project I want to work on, that's a big win. We put in as little as possible, And we do as little work on each feature as possible to get the critical things. We don't try to figure out ahead of time what's most critical. We're going to learn it in doing the work. I'm going to take a quick retrospective right now. Is this helpful?
Yes.
Is this good? Okay. Because sometimes I go on and on and on. And my wife will tell you. She's learned to tune it out. I have no filter. But what else would you say? Because you're all nice New Englanders. So I appreciate that. You're being kind to me. I appreciate that.
Where are you from, Woody?
I'm from San Diego, California. So, which is a nice place. I enjoy it too. I grew up there, and I was born in California, and so was my father. So we were, but my family first came to Boston from Scotland in the mid-1700s.
Welcome home.
And I love it. We're actually going to go look for graves tomorrow. We're going to go try and find some of the graves. Can I tell an interesting story, a byline for this?
Yeah.
My great-grandmother, 8 great-grandmothers back, was Abigail Faulkner. Does anybody know who that is? So over there in Salem, they had these witch trials. She was from Andover. You know who I'm talking about? She was tried as a witch and condemned to death. And she was pregnant, and they could not kill her because she was pregnant. She refused to state that she was a witch, although several of her relatives did, so she could get off this. And she said basically this: they accused her of coming in her form, came and affected the girls that her form came to us and made us where we couldn't function, something like that. And she said in her trial, that wasn't me. If that happened, it was the devil taking my form. I had nothing to do with it. Well, I'm pretty sure I would have said something similar to that, and probably they would have executed me. So I take a lot of pride that she stood up that way for that. So you guys figured that out. You straightened it out after a while, and they pardoned her. So thank you, everybody. I probably wouldn't be here today if you didn't. So it's you. It's you. Thank you. Okay. That's a wonderful family story that we've actually checked out and found. You can do that online nowadays. It's wonderful. Figure out who screwed up in your family years ago. Okay, so let's go on. Technical debt. So I have a weight problem. I will gain weight if I eat junk food. So you know the old saying about software, garbage in, garbage out. But with junk food, it's garbage in, garbage stays. Right? So this happens to me quickly. If I am not mindful, everybody here knows from the conference I drink a lot of Dr. Pepper. It's full of sugar, and I don't like the one that doesn't have sugar. So it's not a good thing. Garbage in, garbage stays. That's what happens with technical debt. As soon as it gets in your code, it's going to stay. Getting it back out again is difficult. And then somebody has to make a decision, should we remove it? So how do we deal with that with the mob? First of all, a lot of what technical debt is about is not seeing patterns in your problems that you're solving, in the features you're trying to do, or in the solutions you devised. So these slight differences give us problems in that we get similar problems with dissimilar solutions, and we can't see the duplication. But if I had a whiteboard, I could show this maybe better, but let's go through this quickly. If you take 3 people and they're each working on a separate module, either at the same time or at different times, we do not get a chance to see the patterns. No, well, that's okay, because I think we're going to run out of time.
Okay, all right.
So these separate things, either separated by time or separated by who's working on them, we're okay. We don't get a chance to see the patterns. How do we see patterns? We see patterns because we get to see more than one of something. Even in a code review, often we're reviewing a single module. And to remember that we did something a week ago or a month ago is kind of difficult in that. And sometimes the guy who's doing the code review for this module is different than the girl who's doing the code review for this module. So they're not going to see the patterns either. So in our way of working, everything's done serially. It's like a Kanban with a one-piece flow. If something gets done today and something gets done next week that are similar, somebody on the team goes, That's a lot like that thing we did last week. And then we've seen the pattern. When we get to 3 of them, we've already got a solution that we've started to develop. Now we have more ammunition, and we get rid of that duplication quickly. It happens very easily. But it's also a clean code, yes?
Can I add to that?
Yes, Llewellyn's going to add to that.
The beautiful thing here is...
We'll wait for the mic, because we don't want to miss anything Llewellyn has to say.
So the beautiful thing on the mob is that the person who sees the pattern doesn't have to have a great solution on how to remove that technical debt.
Yes.
They don't even have to have a solution.
That's right.
Right? As long as they see it in the group, the best solution possible from the group is going to occur. So a lot of times I'm at teams and they're like, oh yeah, we have technical debt. I'm like, well, what are you doing about it? Like, I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
Somebody else, you know, like you don't need the person who remembers it to be the person who solves it. And that really gives good solutions occurring all the time.
That's an excellent point. So a lot of our problems are solved just by having a bunch of different minds on the same thing at the same time. You know, can you imagine a basketball game where one guy's playing this week and another team member's playing next week? You know, that's never going to work. I can't pass the ball to him because he's here next week. In this way, this is the thing about ideas. Ideas have to flow through the people. It has to flow from person to person. And when we do it out loud and we do it on the whiteboard, it happens very, very rapidly. We get ideas, connect up, it allows us to be creative. It happens very quickly. Let's go on. Thrashing. Well, I won't talk too much about this. That's our poor little dog. He's happy all the time, except when there's a loud noise, like thunder, or even rain or wind. Somebody turns on the blender, I'm drilling with a loud drill, and he gets rattled and can't work. So thrashing, the term thrashing, usually is meant that it's distracted the developer to such a degree they can't get their work done. And there's many ways it happens. Someone gets taken off of some work to put on some other work. Then they're brought back to that work. Oh, no, they got this emergency. They're taken off and put onto that work. So there's 2 ways. There's many types of thrashing. One popular one is vice president comes in. It's always the vice president, of course, and says, oh, we've got a trade show in 2 weeks. We need such and such a person off your team to come help us. Who is it that they bring off the team to help with the big emergency deadline? Which person? The best person, almost always.
Yeah.
And what is the reason that best person is on the team? What is their role on the team?
Thrashing.
Their leadership. They are the go-to person, either in name, or often they're the team lead, or they're just the person who naturally is leading the team. And everybody goes to him with questions, or her with questions. How do I get this done? So who's getting thrashed here? Both groups. The person who's taken out and the people that stay. Never do that. But anyways, there's 2 ways to solve things like thrashing. One is just don't allow them to happen. The other is make it where it's irrelevant that they happen. Okay, so we do that in the mob in 2 ways. So how do you keep it from happening? A whole team of people can say, easily say, like you saw earlier, he really can't do that right now. And it's hard to say, all you guys, no, we're going to take him anyways. One thing that just kind of happens naturally, people come into our work area and go, oh, wait, you guys are in a meeting? I'll come back later. It just looks like we're in a meeting, because to everyone else, it just looks like a meeting. But it's the way we're working. It's like a meeting, it's like a working meeting. We'll talk about that in a minute. The other thing I want to say, though, is so by blocking it and not allowing it to happen, that's sometimes the best thing. But something we noticed was, one day somebody came to visit us. We've invited a lot of people. You're invited anytime you're in San Diego area. You want to come and come and work with us. Join us for a half a day. We'll take you on a hike. We'll go get a sandwich and we'll work. And we'll let you get at the keyboard if you want. We had somebody come in with us. They flew in from Winnipeg. They had a family matter, but they had sent me a tweet. I'd never met the guy. He said, I want to come see what you guys are doing. He came and sat with us. After about 10 minutes, he was productive. He was saying, oh, wait, there's a better way to do that. And oh, there's this thing in C# where we get to do this Lambda thing that works like this. And we do use Lambdas all the time, but they're very complex, complicated or whatever. But he knew a different way, a better way to do something we were already doing. That got me thinking that we can take somebody from outside the team and bring them in, and we get productivity almost instantly. I've been at jobs where it took 2 months of doing stuff before I was actually allowed to do real work. Here we can do it almost instantly. The reverse is, if we pull someone off the team, somebody comes and says, no, we really need him, he's got to go do this thing, they're gone, we can keep working because we have this shared memory of what we're doing, shared knowledge. Even if it's our best person, when they come back, they missed a day or two. But when they got back, they can get right on track. They'll catch up where we're at. They may have lost some stuff, but they're going to get back on track quickly. So that's mitigating by making where it's sort of irrelevant that we got thrashed. So we don't have a lot of meetings and stuff to distract us, by the way. We'll see that in a minute. I'm not going to cover the politics tonight because we'll run out of time. I'll just say one thing about it. At a lot of places I worked, everybody's sort of judged by the amount of work they can turn out, and the very best people are expected to do a lot more work. But they're the best people to help everyone else. And when they don't, they're not allowed to help anyone else because they themselves feel they won't get their own work done if they're helping someone else. So every time they help someone else, they're helping them get their better performance review, and they're lessening their chance of getting a good performance review. So that's one kind of politics that creeps in. And there's all kinds of these things, but I won't go any more on that. Again, we could do a whole session on that. I can make up all kinds of things that would seem plausible. Okay, meetings. So I like to ask, are these people going to a meeting or are they coming from a meeting? So most meetings are like this. We gather together to share some information, to make some decisions, make some assignments, get aligned, we're ready to go forward. As soon as we leave, we start becoming unaligned, disaligned. Imagine if every time you took your car in to get it aligned, you ran into one of these potholes I discovered all over the place. And you have to go in the next day and get it aligned again, and get it aligned again. Okay, if that's the way cars were, that we needed to take them in and get them aligned every day, every morning, what do you think would be a great invention? A self-aligning wheel, right? We figure out a way to do that. So if this is a smell to me, this is a project or a process smell. If we are having these meetings to get us aligned, and we notice we get out of alignment right away afterwards, we've got to figure out a way not to do that. This is the difference between the typical meetings and what we do, which we think of as a working meeting. Everybody's been on working meetings. Working meetings where you do the actual work that you're supposed to be doing, that you're wanting to do, instead of deciding stuff about the work that you want to do. So that might not be very helpful, but to me, meetings are a smell, and if we have too many of them, we need to figure that out. We have almost no meetings. The only really set-aside meetings we do are retrospectives. And we'll do just in time, we'll talk about that later, retrospectives as well. Do we have more time left?
Till 8:20.
8:20?
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So I'm going to slow down a little. We'll go back to politics and some of the other questions. Okay, so continuous learning, this was one of the first things that I noticed, because I learned this long before we were doing the mock program. In 2009, I think, Ronald had gone to a Agile conference and he learned about doing the coding dojos. He introduced it to me. And so what I started doing in coding dojos is where you just gather a bunch of programs together and you kind of do various types of programming together to kind of learn. It's a dedicated, deliberate learning period that you do together in a shared form, maybe with some projectors. And I started just keeping notes of how many learning opportunities were happening. And I noticed it was just continuous. We're continuously learning something in that environment. Shortcuts, new languages, new patterns, new ideas. It's happening not every 10 minutes, not every 5 minutes. It's happening minute by minute. So we noticed in our own environment, we were learning a lot, but we have to be careful about a couple things. So one of those things is, I like to show with this, I love this a lot. So if this adult, and let's say that's her daughter, was to say, what are you doing? You're messing it all up. Give it to me. I'm going to do it. What do you think the lesson's going to be? What's going to get learned there? You know? There's something bad. Pretty soon, 4 or 5 years from now, they're going to be riding around on a motorcycle, smoking cigarettes. I mean, you know, that's the path to degradation. We got in trouble. What do you have to do? You have to take it in the spirit of a mature adult. That's exactly what happened the first time I did it. and I'm going to show you how to not have that happen. Or it could even be, I think you can figure out how to not have that happen. Right? So we have to have that mind that any mistake anybody can make is a learning experience that we can all learn from. And let's not get on either of those cases about some goofy thing they did. Because the reverse is just as important. The beginner's mind will teach us stuff that we cannot figure out ourselves. That beginner will often show us stuff we could not figure out ourselves. And so you have to be open to that learning all the time. You just got to be open to it. Because something that they say that is very simple and direct is going to solve a big problem we've been solving the wrong way for years. I've noticed that about guys that get to my age. We solve problems similar, problem after problem. They're different problems, we solve them similarly because we have solutions that we know work for us. And it's an easier way to get through the day. We can use our fast thinking instead of our slow thinking. So we have to keep open to that, or we're just going to get down this rut. They call them ruts, right? So let's go on. We have to understand as well, this is not for everybody, because some people can't take this kind of pressure as being everything you do is revealed. If you aren't good at something, it shall be revealed. Some people are always afraid that they're going to do something they're going to get laughed at about. That's probably even the wrong way to say it. They're going to be maybe ridiculed about. One of the guys that joined our team was typed like this. One finger typing thing. And all these years he was a pretty good, he was a QA guy mostly, but he'd written a lot of code as well. And boy, that came up real quick that he was not moving very quickly in his typing. So what does the rest of the team do? Maybe I should ask that. What would the team do? If we're treating them with kindness, consideration, and respect. What's that?
Type for him.
Well, okay, we could type for them, but that isn't what we did.
They live with it.
Teach them how to type faster.
Teach him how to type faster. So guide him to getting better at the practice. So we have 5 people on the team. One person said, I know where there's some online typing tutor things that they work really good for me to get my speed up. And somebody else said, oh, I've got an idea. They took a cardboard box, they cut some holes in it, he put his hands in the holes, put the cardboard box over the keyboard, couldn't see the keyboard anymore. So between those 2 things, within a week or 2, he was a pretty good typer. Typist? Yes. Typer. Okay. And so
Typerist, huh?
the thing is that if we didn't take that with the right spirit, that might have been a very bad experience. He wasn't afraid to show his frailties. The best programmer is going to make just as many mistakes as the not best programmers. I worked when I was a kid for about a year with a violin maker. He was a master violin maker. And he was a really wonderful guy. Even to take me on, sort of as an apprentice. I would do things for him and he would teach me stuff. And one day he goes, it's kind of an old joke. He loved to do these kind of jokes on me. He says, you know what the difference between a master and everyone else? Does anybody know that joke? What's the difference between a master violin maker and everyone else? The master knows how to hide his mistakes. Now that was a real eye-opener for me. Because I was learning to carve fiddleheads. You know what a fiddlehead is? Where we are, the fiddles here is their violins, right? So carving a fiddlehead. And he gave me a block of mahogany to carve. Does anybody here carve wood? They usually carve them in maple. It's really easy to make mistakes in mahogany. He wanted me to make as many mistakes as I could. And then he would show me how to fix those mistakes. It was pretty cool. He was a brilliant man. This one. I can tell those stories all day long. Okay. Because I like everything that I'm talking about here and the things I'm sharing with you, but it's not as interesting as those little tidbit stories. I love those. Here's the thing, though. When we're working together, closely together all day long, we started noticing that we were getting cricks in our neck and our back wasn't feeling good. People were getting sick too easily. The screen was too far away or it was too close, all kinds of things like this. And we realized we have to pay a lot of attention to our health. Now, when we're sitting in our own cubicle all day long, our chair's adjusted for us, the screen's height is adjusted for us, everything's the way we want it to be to make it easy for us to work. So we started having to think, well, where should the screens be? They ended up being like, this is too high. they ended up being quite a bit lower where we're projecting them. So we had to find all those things out. This is really about making it easy to get through the day comfortably and not get sick. So I won't go into that too much more. It's the mental stress that's the biggest problem, but physical stress is bad too. So for example, we keep, you probably noticed in the video or whatever, we keep little bottles of hand cleanser, what do they call it, sanitizer around. I don't know if that stuff does any good or not. It's probably something they're just making money off of us, and it's destroying the environment or something, but we use it because we think it's keeping us from getting sick, and we're sitting far enough apart where we're not sneezing on each other. Has anybody here ever pair-programmed? Got 1, 2, 3, well, of course. So come on, guys, you gotta be pair-programmed. So that's enough preaching there. But the point is, when you're pair-programming with someone, you're usually sitting too close. And you're often kind of leaning in, the other person leans in, you're leaning in. Nothing works well. You're using the extra chair in their cubicle to work with them. So we have found comfort's really important. Being comfortable throughout the day is important. We also get up and stand up and move around quite frequently. Does anybody want to hear this? How we discovered this? How did this come about? I have enough time to do that, I think. I usually don't have enough time to cover this, and I think this is the most interesting part. But we still have 10 minutes of stuff left, so I'll do it really quickly. When I first came on this place, I had a lot of things I wanted the team to be exposed to. TDD and pair programming were important, and things like just general teamwork and things like taking off small bits of work and working on small bits, all the typical Agile stuff. But we had a big project that had some problems in it that was due in about 9 months, and it was now due in about 3 months. So I put it off till we could build some skills and knowledge on the team. At about the time we were ready to work on it, we took one of those meeting rooms where you just sit around a table and there's a projector at the end, and we started working on it. Well, during the 6 months leading up to that, we've been doing these coding dojos where we pass the keyboard around, all throughout the whole thing, every 4 minutes. So as we start working on it, someone said, oh yeah, I know where that's at, and they opened the thing up here. Because this was an ongoing project that had been put on hold, there was a lot of existing code. And somebody else said, oh wait, I know where that database is now, because they moved it to a new server, and they did something. And then we handed it off again. Well, after an hour and a half of that, you know how meeting rooms are. Somebody came up to the meeting room, they're standing outside going, you know, we're supposed to be in here next. And so we said, okay, we'll go to another room. Everybody said, let's go to another room. So I scheduled one, we ran, we grabbed all our stuff. At the end of that one, we got another room. And we do retrospectives. At that time, we were doing them every day, at the end of every day, more or less. And so we did a retrospective, and you know, you do a smiley face sheet maybe and a frowny face sheet. The smiley face sheet, boy, we're getting a lot done. Boy, I was learning a lot. Oh, now I understand this part. It was all good stuff about what we did. The bad stuff, we had to run from room to room. My neck was starting to hurt. I can't see the screen so well. We need a better projector, whatever. That was a very interesting thing. So the team all decided right then and there, let's take rooms, schedule rooms all over the place for the whole next day. And we did that. And we haven't stopped since. That's been 2.5 years. 2.5 years we've been doing this because the team decided to. Now, I'm a coder. I code in on the team. I do very little coding now, mostly because I have a slightly different role. I think my role is to make sure the team is growing and we're understanding these things so that at some point they can operate without me when I'm called beyond. Yes?
How much turnover?
What's that?
How much turnover have you had?
We've had 3, let's see, 1, 2 team members. One quit, the other got caught up in a layoff. Something was out of my control. And then and we've added 3. So it's a little different than where it started, but I have no fear that this could be ongoing as long as we were careful to hire people who are willing to work this way. Because we always work by invitation. Nobody had to be involved in this. So I'll run forward with this now, but this is, yes?
His team stays with huge determination and loyalty that I have not seen in any other company. That team will not leave. They love where they are and they love who they work with. The turnover there is beyond negative. The team there loves being there, and they have been tried to be seduced away, and they will not leave.
So I'll make a point about that, and that's this, that this is a unique work environment. The company that I work for, their byline is they're innovators. And it's it was very easy for us to adopt the ideas that I carry with me because of Agile. And it's rare to get that opportunity. So yes, I do want to get done with the slides.
Do you have a sense of how this is being adopted, like how widely?
How widely, you mean like across the world it's being adopted?
Or the country, or the company?
The country, throughout the world, there are at least 10 or 12 teams that I know of that are doing this now. I've spoken at a number of companies, that, including Ericsson for one in Sweden, where they're maintaining some teams. I know of other teams, and we can talk about that. There are a lot of people trying. We even had a team fly down from Portland, spend the whole day with us and go back, that had been doing pair programming for maybe 6 months. I mean, mob programming, and they wanted to, because they had heard about it from us, they wanted to see what we were doing. And I think they continue to do it. So I know of quite a few, and I could list them off, but I can't really put them all on tape. A lot of, what do they call it, non-disclosure kinds of things. So let's go on. Another wonderful animation. Okay, so here's the thing. This is remember I said earlier, the most important thing? It doesn't matter what practices we adopt. If you are doing retrospectives, reflect, tune, and adjust. We can figure out, let's get good at this. Let's get good at this. And then we'll figure out for each of our teams, in each of our workplaces, how to best work. The team can do that. So people always ask this. So I'm trying to cover every question that I normally get. I added them to this talk after talk. Do you recommend mob programming? And we do not. Okay, we're just sharing something that we do. I don't know if it would work in your environment. If you called me on the phone and said, we'll give you lots of money to come train us in doing mob programming, my advice would be, is let's get a good group together and learn how to do retrospectives really well. And then you'll find the thing that fits in your organization. Let's learn these things. We'll go on to the leadership stuff. This is what I really want to cover. This is a thing, though, we invite you to explore, innovate. This next one's the most important. Pay attention to what works. We have to listen. That's the paying attention. We have to see and observe. Seeing and listening isn't enough. We really have to internalize it. And then we reflect and tune and adjust. And we'll take that kind of a step further. Is that if that's all we get good at, we will get good at everything else. That's one of those obliquity things. That's the indirect route. We need to do that. Let's go on. So this is now back to the leadership stuff. What is a leader? What is leadership? If I had time, I'd ask from the audience some ideas, and then I'd just shoot them down. So we're not going to do that. This is critical to me. This is my definition of a leader. I don't know who else might have this. I've read similar things in some books, but this is how I think of it. The story that's important to me is the one that matters to me. Right? If I understand something a certain way, that's what matters to me. It may not be important to you. This is what I think. A leader has a vision, knows that they need other people to be able to realize that vision. They then share that vision with the people, whoever it is, and they keep that vision alive. To me, that's what a leader is. So you can't appoint a leader. You can't give a person a title and they're a leader, right? Leadership is about having that vision that you can communicate. It has meaning to you. You need other people involved. If you didn't need other people, you wouldn't need to be a leader. You'd follow yourself, I guess. And then we need to keep that vision alive. I think that's really important. This is another one of these I think I can leave up for a while. My wife does such wonderful art. I love this one. Let's go on to the next one. What's a manager? That's a picture of me when I was 12. That my wife drew for me for a story I wrote. I started working when I was 12 years old. And I had the best manager in the world. So that's probably why I put it in there. I got spoiled for any other job from that manager. So what is a manager? What is management? This is critical. Okay? Manager provides an environment where everyone can excel at their work and at their life. Work is such an important part of our day that if we're going to do work, that's what we need to be providing. If we're not doing that, I don't think we're fulfilling anything else that our companies need to do. Because the oblique way, the obliquity version of getting to profits is not to focus on profits. I think. What do I know? Okay. That's us. So thank you, everybody. I'm happy to take questions. Are there questions? I covered everything. We do have a question. I did try to cover everything because the leadership part of this is new, but the mob programming part of it I've been doing for about a couple of years, so I've built in the questions.
When you decide to do mob programming, do you get any pushback from the management?
So this is part of the leadership thing, and this is basically why this was allowed to happen. The bosses above me just want stuff to get done nicely, right? And so once they saw we were doing this, and the team was excited to be doing it and wanted to keep doing it, as long as productivity was growing and happening, which was, they were happy. So there wasn't much convincing to do, in my opinion. Other questions? Yes?
Yeah, so can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, thank you. So I understand the whole, or I think I understand the collective sense of the mob programming.
Yes.
What I get stuck on, or I'm stuck on the concept of like a 4-minute driver or a 15-minute driver.
Sure.
I mean, I think about my own programming, 15 minutes is hardly enough to refactor a half a page of stuff.
Well, so the thinking is being done by the group, and all the coder has to do is translate. So the level that the coder, the person with his fingers on the keyboard that's actually writing code, all they have to be able to do is take information and translate it, and they will do it at different levels. So a beginner, you might have to go line 34, start writing the customer, it's going to fill out. But at a more advanced person, you would say, oh, we're going to, this method is to do a statement, so we're going to have to get a customer object, we're going to have to get all the receipts, and we're going to have to do some totals. And then they're going to just go right in, they're going to do a customer object, they're going to get a collection of the receipts, and they can just start putting that together. Now, we always write a test first, of course. So a test-driven, you're usually writing a test for a minute or two, really, literally a minute or two, and writing some code for a minute or two. So it goes very quickly. So the driver is not doing a lot of thinking. The thinking's being done. So here's the problem with coding usually, I think. When we're just a solo coder, we have to think in the business realm, and then we have to think in the code realm. And then we're switching back and forth all the time. With this model, we don't need to do that. We're just a smarter input device. So this wouldn't be good for somebody who doesn't want to work that way. It's not going to work well. But almost everybody that's worked with us on it so far just naturally gets in that flow as well. It works into a team flow instead of an individual flow. So everybody's got their eyes on the code as it's happening, and they're going to say, wait a second, you're doing a list there, I think a dictionary would be better. So they say, oh yeah, a dictionary. And someone else might say, no, I think it should be a list. Well, guess what? This is where the decisions come in. We can say, yeah, let's try a list. No, that's not so good. Let's try the dictionary. Yeah, that's a little better. We can try them both. So we're mindful. It's all about mindfulness.
Hi, Woody. Do you have an audio or a video audio of your team working available?
Besides that, besides the time-lapse one, we don't.
No sound on that?
There's no sound or anything.
I just love to hear the dialogue or the...
Yes, actually, come out and visit us. Seriously. And then you'll see exactly. Because most of the stuff, it's proprietary. We couldn't put it on a tape anyways. But we do Coding Dojo demonstrations, and we did one at the Agile Games. And so that's where you get to participate and see how that works.
This is more of a comment. I attended your session.
Yes.
And I'm not a coder. I can read code and I can troubleshoot code. I can't write it. But then support me. But anyway, in that hour and a half we spent on that, I learned several coding techniques and understood things I had never been able to understand before, like why you do certain types of code in C#.
Yeah.
And the way that it was being written.
Yeah, the learning opportunities are just endless. The learning opportunities just continually happen. More questions? As many as you want. Let's stay all night.
So has the team been or had to address any kind of personality conflicts or severe differences in skill?
Yeah. They got me for a manager, I guess. So, I mean, seriously, there's a bunch of things that we've had to work through, but essentially, we went from just the beginnings of this to being fully functional with it without too much conflict, because we'd already been practicing the coding dojos for quite a while, so it was kind of a natural step forward. One of the first things I introduced on the team was the idea of I will ask for help if I need help coding, and I always ask for help. So people got used to just sitting with me in coding, and then they started sitting with each other in coding. So we just kind of introduced the practice of asking for help to each other. So we were already getting good at some of these things. But I have worked in the past with people on similar teams where the conflicts were hot and heavy, and I couldn't resolve all of those in this model. This model of working, you gotta take that kindness, consideration, and respect to it. But can I add one more thing on that? There's a big difference between the dynamic of 2 people working together and 5 people or 6 people working together. If you have 2 people working together, if they don't really mesh well, it's not going to work well. But here we have this group with 5 or 6 people. If one person meshes decently with a few, and another one meshes decently with a few, there's going to be enough interplay where somebody can say, wait, slow down. And they know how to do that with that person. And the reverse is true as well then. It's like, hey, you're getting out of line here, but somebody knows how to say that to that person, because so the dynamic changes in a team over just 2 people working together. You see that in a married couple sometimes. They bicker all the time. But when they go out with their friends, they're on their best behavior. So we get part of that best, and it doesn't always happen that way, right? Sometimes they get worse and well. But
we'll have time for more questions for networking afterwards. Woody, if you can stay up here, maybe have some private conversation.
Certainly.
So I want to thank Woody very much.
Thank you. Can we have these to the raffle?
Oh, yes, definitely.
So I brought some pictures that Andrea had done. So that's the reading raffle. They're reading a book of the 3 Little Pigs. Flopsy chooses to fly, and few know Mopsy's secret. So these are gifts.
Thank you.
You'll figure out how to get